he represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fith chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fith chapter.
That's right, and welcome to the Fith chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian, and we're ready for episode number 105 on a big day for the Red Wings. After missing the playoffs for each of the last 5 seasons, Dennis, they gave Jeff Blashill, the third longest tenured coach in the NHL, a contract extension. Your thoughts?
It was surprising, but you know what? If it was anybody else except Steve Yzerman, I think people would raise the stank because, just what we've seen from Blashill. But because it's Yzerman, he has a track record, you think like, it's an indication to me this team's not going to be very good next year.
Yeah, I think it's clear that the team made progress from last year to this year because they're not the worst team in all of sports. Last year they were dead last by a wide margin in goals allowed and dead last by a wide margin in goals scored. And this year they were just a bad team that was at the bottom of their division. And it was hard to compare because they didn't get to play against 75% of the NHL. But, It's hard to look at Jeff Blashill's resume and have a really strong opinion about it because he's had no talent, but it's also hard to look at what he's done and say, he's got to come back, and Steve Yzerman can't do any better than this. And by giving him an extension as opposed to hiring somebody else, it makes you think that Steve Yzerman doesn't think he can do better than Blashill at this point.
Yeah, and I know this. If he was shown the door, there wasn't one person that was going to be like, oh, man, they should have kept him around. And the case next year when they get into it and they look like they're disappointing and they need a jump start, nobody's going to say anything if they dismiss him then. So, that's just the way it is when it comes down to him. Yzerman, people are still in the complete trust for Steve Yzerman. There's not that many dissenters on that front.
Yeah, it's been 2 years, so we'll see what happens in year 3. One thing that was not released when we found out that Blashill was coming back was the terms. Is it a 1-year extension to make him another lame duck, give him another lame duck year? Is it 2 or 3? You'd have to imagine it's multiple years, but we just don't know. But we've got 5 more fantastic chapters for you today, and we want to thank all who are watching via YouTube, watching via Facebook Live, and watching via Twitch. Also to those who are listening to the podcast via Apple, Google, and Spotify. That, of course, is available for you to listen to at about 11 o'clock on the day of each show. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you participate in each show by sending in your feedback. Dennis will be reading it throughout the course of the show on Facebook Live and on YouTube. If you're wondering what we'll be talking about during the course of the show, let's take a look at today's book. As you can see in the second chapter, Dennis and I will give you our predictions for the play-in tournament. It is underway right now, and it's going on for the next 4 days in the NBA. We'll tell you who we have coming out in the East and the West to fill in those final 2 playoff spots. In the third chapter, we know the Pistons didn't make the playoffs, and we know that they finished off the tank. They tanked like a no-limit soldier, and they had the second worst record in the league. If everything goes to chalk, we'll tell you who we would take with the number 2 pick. In the fourth chapter, for the third time in the Fith chapter's history, we'll be interviewing someone. It is none other than Mets minor league coach Chris Newell. We'll tell you why he is a local legend, and we'll also help you. Tell you guys all about his charity and how you can get involved. And then in the fifth chapter, it's the major wager where Dennis and I will try to make you guys a little bit of money. A lot of stuff going on right now between the basketball playoffs, the baseball regular season, and the NHL playoffs. So a lot to bet on right now if you are a sports bettor. But Dennis, let's turn the page first to the first chapter. And that takes us to the Tigers, who no longer have the worst record in baseball. They don't even have the second worst record in baseball. They're 28th with a 15-26 record. I know Al Avila's breathing a sigh of relief. And surprisingly, a team that was projected to compete for the division title this year, the Twins have the worst record in baseball at 13-26. Tigers are still dead last by 22 runs with a minus 66 run differential, but they're playing better as of late, in part due to the emergence of Casey Mize. Last night, for instance, against the Mariners, Eric Haas led the way offensively with 2 unlikely home runs, but Mize had a career-high 7 2/3 innings pitched, tied a career-high with 7 strikeouts, allowed just 1 run, walked 3, and gave up 3 hits. And since the calendar has turned to May, 19 2/3 innings pitched, a 1.83 ERA, 1 homer allowed, struck out 14, 9 hits, 9 walks. Dennis, the question I think a lot of Tigers fans are asking is whether or not Casey Mize is really starting to figure it out, or if he has figured it out as a major leaguer.
Yeah, that is the question. You know, and I don't really care about the Tigers' record. I don't think anybody's looking at them as, mounting some charge or doing anything in the second half. It's all about the future, and the future is your first overall pick in Casey Mize. And, he just turned 24 at the beginning of the month. So, this is last year he got his feet wet, and it wasn't very promising. I was hoping, that he was going to hit the ground running like some, prospects. But he didn't, so we had to wait to this year, and a little bit spotty at the beginning here. But now 4 starts in a row, and that's really the stuff, man. And you see it, and he looks like a future ace. He looks like a phenom, and if he keeps those walks down and keeps this up, I mean, that's some real promise here for the Tigers. And I haven't been able to say that much about anybody when it comes to the Tigers or anything about the Tigers. So having at least one piece. And the most important piece, makes you feel good, at least for a night.
Yeah, and you're right about not caring about the win-loss record. I think I said last week that I would prefer if the Tigers just lose every game until Al Avila gets fired, because obviously being last isn't good enough, and certainly being second to last in the division is not going to be good enough. So if they get to be last by 20 games, maybe that'll be good enough to get him fired. And I'm not going to give Al Avila any credit for the last 3 games by Casey Mize because he was the first overall pick. He's doing what he's supposed to do. But in terms of whether or not he's figured it out, I'll give it until the end of the month. I'll give him until he's made a couple more starts. But this is the best that he's looked as a major leaguer. He made, I believe, 7 starts last year, and he's made 7 or 8 starts this year. And last year he did not have control like he has right now, and that led to a lot of hits. That led to a lot of home run balls, and it led to a lot of walks in a short amount of time. He was giving up those home runs, giving up those walks, going 3 and 4 innings. And I look back at his game log from last year. He only got through the 5th inning once in 7 starts last year. That was why part of the reason why so many fans were so disappointed in him is that he couldn't go deep at all or even partially into the game. This year, because he has better control, particularly recently, he's able to hit his spots. He's not bouncing that breaking ball in front of home plate. That was supposed to be his marquee pitch, and now it's just below the strike zone where he can get a swing and miss at it, as opposed to a grounder rolling up to Jake Rogers or Eric Haas or Grayson Griner or whoever's behind the plate. That allows him to be more efficient, and when he's more efficient, he can keep his pitch count down, and he can go deeper into games, and that's what we saw yesterday, 7 2/3 innings. And if you remember, if you go back to the first game of the season, Dennis, you declared after his first start, when he went 4 innings and gave up 1 run, 5 hits, 2 walks, you said, that's about as good as you can expect. And I was not having that because I had higher expectations for him, even for it being his first overall season, because he was a first overall draft pick, because he was a top 10 prospect according to Baseball America and MLB Pipeline, if I'm not mistaken. And last night was more of what I was expecting. Last night was satisfactory, and he was pitching like a guy who could be a future all-star, not just a guy that you hope can fit in as a number 3 guy in your rotation. So this is the best he's pitched so far. I'm not going to say that he's figured it out completely after just 3 starts, but give me 2 more starts to finish out this month. And if it looks like we've seen so far in May, then Tigers fans can really make sure to tune in every single time he pitches and know that at least part of their rotation looks good for the future.
Yeah, you go back to April, if it's the first start or two, keeping a pitch count down, keeping the innings down. It's like, especially when you know the team isn't going to be competing for anything, having a guy, putting a standard on him of trying to get to 100 pitches or the seventh inning or something, while all those things were nice. I mean, that's not the most important thing, but yeah, you saw it last night. Honestly, I fell asleep. I mean, that game went on pretty late, but, he was putting 0-0-0, gave up the home run finally in the eighth, and then had 2 strikeouts. Then he was ticked off that he got brought out. So you like that a little bit as well from him. And, it's just those walks now, but he's really, like, the thing is when they were talking about him, why he was 1-1 overall, is that he had 4+ pitches, and you're seeing some of that. You see a nasty curveball. You see that fastball that moves around a little bit and tricks these guys. It's great. And we haven't had this in a while to actually see somebody out there, and somebody that I also like and root for is Fulmer, and seeing him find a spot in that bullpen, shut the door, slam the door, like he did, even though I didn't see it. That was good for him. I don't know what his future holds if he stays there as a closer, but he's still relatively young. I mean, if you think about Fulmer being a closer, could he be a guy that could be a premier closer for the next 5 years? That's pretty cool.
It seems like A.J. Hinch wants to use him like the Indians used to use Andrew Miller and just put him in the high leverage situation. And if you look at what a lot of the sabermetrics experts look at when it comes to pitchers like that, that's the best idea, is to not go with a closer. And after reading about that, hearing about that a couple years ago, I started to fall into that line of thinking, because if you think about it, would you rather have your best bullpen arm come in the 9th inning to face the 7, 8, 9 batters, or would you rather have him come in an inning before to face the 4, 5, and 6 batters? Obviously, the 4, 5, and 6 batters are better, and so it makes sense to throw him in there in that situation as opposed to the closer going in there and facing a bunch of bums. If you have a high leverage situation in the 6th inning with 1 out and you got the bases loaded, does it make sense to throw in, some random guy like an Alex Lang? Or if you got a 1-run lead that you need to protect, does it make more sense to give the ball to Michael Fulmer and say, we need outs. We don't need, a ground out and a run scores or something like that. We need a double play ball, or we need back-to-back strikeouts. And that's something that Michael Fulmer can give you. And I like the way that Hinch has been using him recently.
Yeah, well, the great thing about Miller is that it's not only would he be in a high leverage situation, he could also go multiple innings, and that's something that Fulmer could do.
Yes.
And all of that's great, but a lot of times it doesn't fall like exactly, 2, 3, 4 hitter, 7, 8, 9. It's somewhere in the mix there. Then you walk somebody, and then, it's not the leverage situation. But I hear what you're saying on that. It makes some sense, but there's also the part about the 9th inning. Whether A.J. Hinch or if you or anybody that works at Fangraphs or analytics or anything else, there is something to be a closer. There's something to having that makeup. You could say, got to have it in the 7th, got to have it in the 8th, you got to have it in the 9th. But when it's the final 3 outs, they're harder to get.
But you got to get there. And if in the 7th inning you got a high leverage situation and A.J. Hinch says, well, Fulmer's the closer, so we're going to go with our 3rd best pitcher, and you stick him in there. Maybe it's Joe Jimenez who just got pulled up, and there's a man on 2nd and 3rd, and he gets up to a 3-run home run. Well, guess what? There's no opportunity for Fulmer to come in and get the save unless the Tigers' weak lineup puts in a couple more runs in the 8th and 9th innings. So that's why a lot of the experts say that you go with your best pitcher in those high leverage situations, because you got to get to the 9th with a lead, and if your bum gives it up in a high leverage situation, then you're screwed.
Yeah, well, it always doesn't work out perfectly like you would like there. Sometimes, you walk a guy or give up a couple hits, and you're moving it around a little bit there, and then when you use up your best guy, you're still in a situation where you need those final 3 outs, and then you're using your 3rd best guy where you thought it was going to be a 7, 8, 9 situation, and that's not ideal.
Well, then you blame your best guy for screwing up as opposed to saying, well, this guy we kind of expected to screw up and he did. in a high
well, it's
leverage
nice
situation.
that there is a part about having the ace in the hole, though, and protecting a one-run lead, regardless of the situation and the order as pinch hitters or whatever else that you can do and flip around your order. I know what the analytics say, and you know what? If you're a younger baseball fan, I think you just follow it. You know, it's like it's the gospel. Like, yes, we're smarter than the game and everything else, but there is the part that those last 3 outs are the most difficult. It doesn't matter what's going on.
Well,
and you sometimes can, outthink yourself.
Well, and here's the other key about that. Would you want to finish a game knowing that you didn't even throw your best bullpen arm out there? Because if your second or third or fourth best arm blows the game and you don't get to go to your ace in the hole, your closer in the ninth inning, because instead of having a one-run lead, you have a one-run deficit, you're not going to throw in your closer when you have a one-run lead in the ninth inning. So you lost the game without even throwing your best pitcher. That's another reason why the analytics say that.
Oh, well, you know what? I don't want to dig in on everything because I see I see what you're saying. It's not like I'm just saying, no, my closer, I'm never putting him in. Like, I see the high leverage situation. I think there's a case to be made, though, on the other side, too. I remember, I don't know, was it 4 years ago? Was it the Orioles? They had Spencer Britton, and they never did put him out there because they were waiting for the right situation. The right situation never came up. They lost the game in 12 innings and ultimately lost the series.
Yeah. Getting back to Casey Mize, one other thing that I wanted to point out was that you look at the draft class, the 2018 draft class, he was first overall. And if you look at his last two starts, he faced a team in the Royals that drafted a player that I've compared him a lot to, and that's Brady Singer.
Yeah, you love it. You love Singer.
Yeah, and if you look at how Mize pitched and Singer pitched in that series, Mize outpitched him, which I think is an important stepping stone because certainly last year Singer was better, and to start this year, Singer was better. And then you look at last night, Jared Kelenic was drafted just 5 spots behind Casey Mize, and a lot of Seattle Mariners fans are really high on him, just like Tigers fans are on Spencer Torkelson. And Mize, I think, got the better of Kelenic in all 3 at bats. Kelenic was 1 for 3 against Mize, but it should have been 0 for 3 because Jonathan Scope dropped that lazy line drive in the first inning, and the Mariners Slappy, who was doing the official scoring, said it was a hit instead of an error. But you like seeing Mize get the better of some folks that were drafted after him.
I don't like Scope at first. Bukowski was going on and on, like, Scope at second base, diving all over the place, making him sound like he was a Gold Glover. Let's get to some of the feedback. You ready for that?
Yes.
Keith first up here saying, what's up? He's also saying he trusts Stevie Yzerman. No reason to hire a great coach now. Perhaps Blashill is a good teacher. Jelinek saying Casey Mize looks like a guy who got drafted 1-1.
Well, going back to what Keith said, looking like a good teacher, if Jeff Blashill's been here for, 7, 8 years, whatever it is, the third longest tenure coach in the NHL, does he need the general manager to teach him? He either knows how to coach or he doesn't by now.
No, I think he's making the point that he's a good teacher to the players, like the coach, teacher, not that he's the pupil. Okay. Steve Yzerman's teaching him, but I'm guessing. But Keith and I usually lockstep. So let's get some other ones in here. Keith says the guys are sporting that Tiger orange proudly. Yeah, Al Avila sent us these and said, hey, you know what? Give me a break. Avila pitched well. Mize pitched well. Why don't you guys give me a break?
And stay tuned because if I'm not mistaken, you're going to be making a wardrobe change in the 4th chapter.
No, I'm not planning on doing that.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Reno on the feedback says, thank you, Brian. Avila should be absolutely getting 0 credit. Drafting Mize was a no-brainer. There's somebody that's agreeing with you, Brian.
And the same with Torkelson. Everybody knew that he should be drafted first overall. Torkelson's had a bad start to his career down in West Michigan. But if he starts to hit, if he moves up to AA this year, I'm not going to be saying, hey, heck of a pick by Al Avila. Everyone would have taken him.
You know what? I think Caputo didn't want Mize or Torkelson, okay? I think there's, the shortstop was playing for for Vanderbilt or something I think he wanted.
He does this every year. Whenever there's a consensus guy that the Tigers, the Lions, or whoever should take, the week before the draft, he says, well, I know about some other players, so I'm going to tell you about them and say maybe they shouldn't. And then at the last minute, he says, I would take them too, and all those different things.
Yeah, I don't know if he has ever. You're right. I mean, he's like always talking about the other guys, the possibility, 5-tool guys. You watch the game, okay. But I think in the end, when it came down to Torkelson, I think he did say that he would draft him. But I don't.
And he
know.
said the same with Mize. He said, "Well, maybe they should look at Kelnick." But in the end, he said Mize.
Okay, I'll take your. I'll take it. BP says open checkbook for Theo. Yeah, man, let's get it. Theo Epstein. I'm all about that. Let's go. Let's see. Still have to get Avila out of the front office.
Yes.
That's from BJ.
Job number 1.
Chris needs to at least try. Reno retracted a message. That must have been another compliment to you. Then he was like, wait a second. That's probably too many for Chapman. He can't handle it. Epstein Park, BP says, let's call it. Epstein Metro Airport sounds good.
Oh,
Chris can take a page from the dad's playbook. Just hire him. That's from BP.
One other thing I wanted to mention about one of our previous shows talking about Casey Mize is back in spring training, I made the bold prediction that Willie Castro would be the lone token Tigers All-Star.
Nice job.
That's not going so well. I think he said in 205. You made the bold prediction that it would be Casey Mize, and I just kind of rolled my eyes and thought you were being a slappy. Obviously, right now, the edge substantially is going to Matt Boyd, but I think number 2 right now is probably a toss-up between Jamer Candelario and Casey Mize.
Hey, you know what? Let's go. That sounds pretty good. Let's look back here. Jelinek wants to bring up how nice T-Mobile Park looks for sure. Need to get to that ballpark. Yeah, you know what? It's a no-brainer going to Seattle, man. You get a little bit of everything there. Football stadium is great. Baseball stadium is awesome. It's all right downtown. You got the go check out the University of Washington. Go down.
I got a lot of trees out there.
Get some of that salmon. Look at Mount Rainier. It's wonderful. Nah, you know what? I was only there for 3 days and it didn't rain. I was talking about most of the time people go there, it's raining, but so I drew some nice cards there. All right. I don't know. The Ilitches don't have that losing mentality. Wings and Tigers have been losing for a long time. Mike Ilitch didn't have that. You got to get fed up enough. Mike Ilitch was fed up enough when they lost 119 games. And that's when he went out and grabbed the Yankees playbook and started throwing money at it.
And he got Pudge. And I've got the Pudge jersey hanging in the background.
There you go. And then he went after Max on a crazy knee situation.
Would he go to Switzerland to get that weird treatment?
Yeah. Well, I forgot how that worked. Remember all the clauses in the contract that just kept playing out? But, Max was worth it. Mm-hmm. Obviously. Let's look. Oh, they're still coming in. Torque is hitting 146 right now with 1, maybe 2 extra base hits. Yuck. Speaking of Caputo, he put something on Twitter where he had watched every one of Torkelson's at bat.
I saw that.
What did he say? He looked overmatched on every plate appearance.
He's not hitting the ball very hard. I mean, when you think about what Torkelson did at Arizona State, he was driving it to all fields. He led all of college baseball in home runs as a true freshman. So you're expecting that power to translate, and it hasn't. I think that with Torkelson, it's like there's not much of an excuse because what looks bad. But when you consider the fact that the pandemic really started hitting in February or March, and he went over a calendar year before he played a game because he went from late February or March, that's when the season got canceled, to going up to playing the alternate site games in Toledo against guys that were a heck of a lot better than he'd ever faced and using a wooden bat. And then he goes to spring training and he's got to deal with this wood bat again, and he finally starts playing games just a couple of weeks ago. There's going to be an adjustment period. You would think it wouldn't be this severe, but I think it's probably going to be a couple of months before he gets himself together. Hopefully he won't get demoted down to low A and he can stay up at advanced A while he figures it out. But it's you don't play a real baseball game in over a year, and perhaps this is what's going to happen. I'd be interested to know if it happened, if the same thing has happened to other college prospects who were drafted last year.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I do know that it was only a couple of weeks ago. Was it a scout or was it a Tiger beat writer who had talked to an insider that, or a scout or something like that, and they proclaimed that Torkelson and Riley Green were their best 2 hitters right now, like better than everybody. So I don't know.
No, that's fake news.
That didn't come out very good for those guys. No. All right, on Facebook, here it is. I see us talking on there. Paul W's got a Lions question. Since we don't have any Lions in the chapters, let's throw this one at you. Ready for it?
Yes.
Should the Lions think about Ian Rappaport saying that the Washington football team, WFT, is likely moving on from offensive tackle Morgan Moses?
The Lions just gave a contract extension to an offensive tackle, and they just drafted one 7th overall. So they should pay attention to it to see which team he goes to sign with.
Yeah, the Lions are peddling Crosby. Instead of making him a swing tackle or a backup tackle, they might be peddling him. Lions are not looking for any offensive linemen. One thing they've done, they've drafted on the line. Now, somebody on defense, now they might, that's going to pique your interest. A wide receiver,
yes,
a veteran wide receiver that might be cut. Take a look at that. They're not looking at any offensive linemen.
No,
regardless of who they are.
All right, let's turn the page to the second chapter.
Like it or not, it's here. The play-in games in the NBA, and you can catch the action here going on right now. I know Chap was all in on LaMelo Ball and was excited. I think he even put a bet down on the Hornets, but Pacers and Hornets. The Eastern Conference is going on right now, and coming up later, you got the Wizards and Celtics tomorrow. You got the Western Conference jumping in there with the Grizzlies and the Spurs, and it'll be the Lakers and the Warriors. Stay tuned for that in the fifth chapter of the Major Wager. I'm throwing a bet on that game. So, Chap, what do we think here over the next 4 days? Is this going to be a resounding success? We saw how it played out a little bit over the weekend. Where are we at?
Well, the first game isn't a success, not just because I bet on the Hornets, and as of right now, it's Pacers 82, Hornets 55. But it's not a success because if you're trying to draw people in, you don't want blowouts. You want competitive games. I think if you were to ask NBA executives what they wanted, they would say, we want LaMelo Ball to get close to a triple-double. We want Miles Bridges to have a bunch of highlight dunks. We want it to go to overtime. We don't want the Indiana Pacers or the Charlotte Hornets to have a 27-point lead. I mean, it was when I turned on the game, I turned it on a couple minutes late. It was already 30-16. So if you're sitting down to watch this tournament, you're thinking, wow, it's this game is already over. That said, I think it will be a success, and a lot of it is because of the big names you see down there: LeBron, Steph, LaMelo, who's probably going to be out in a matter of an hour, Jason Tatum, Russell Westbrook, Ja Morant. All these guys are in the playing game. So you might say to yourself, I mean, the 1 seeds and the 2 seeds always win the NBA Finals. Who cares? But the reigning NBA champions this year happen to be in the play-in game, the play-in tournament. One guy that I didn't mention is Anthony Davis. Like for weeks, people have been talking about, how exciting would it be to have a play-in tournament game between LeBron James, seen right there, and Stephen Curry. Well, guess what? We're going to have it. It's almost like a finals rematch. We have those 4 years in a row where they're playing each other in the finals, those individuals, and now they're going to be playing each other in the playoffs once again with the chance to move on to the real playoffs. So I'm excited for it. I'm disappointed that the first game is not going all the well, but if there was one game that you don't want to go well, it's this current one because the fifth chapter is on. But I incorrectly predicted that game, but I like the Wizards to beat the Celtics because the Celtics have been pretty bad ever since Jaylen Brown was lost for the season. They're 2-5 since then. Their only wins came against the tanking Magic and the tanking Timberwolves. They lost to the Bulls by 22 and even lost to the Cavs in their third to the last game when they needed to win. I like the Grizzlies to beat the Spurs because the Spurs have been playing like trash. They've lost 10 out of 12, and that coincided with Derek White, their third leading scorer, getting hurt. He's out for the season. And then in Lakers versus Warriors, I think this game comes down to health, and not the health of the Warriors. It's the health of the Lakers, because it looks like Anthony Davis is going to be fine. It looks like LeBron, who's listed, I believe, as probable, is going to be fine, and it looks like Dennis Schroeder is going to be fine. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to tweak something during the game. That doesn't mean they're not going to tweak something during shoot around or during practice. These guys have been hurt off and on all year long. So as long as they're healthy, I think the Lakers can win, and they can probably cover that 4.5 points. But if we find out that LeBron can't go, or if Anthony Davis twists his ankle in the first half, or has his hamstring get tight and he has to sit out for the rest of the game, that's an opportunity for Steph Curry to go ham and get that 7 seed for Golden State.
Well, yeah, and Steph Curry, you're talking about the greatest shooter of all time, who's put together a hell of a performance this year. You're pretty much short-handed. You go out there, the way he's throwing up threes, he goes out and throws up, 20, 30 threes, and
30.
Whatever it is, man, he's been going nuts. And, this is the kind of thing that you do when you're one of the all-time great players, and he is one of the all-time great players. So it's almost if you're a sports fan, you almost have to watch that game.
Yes.
It's like a Game 7, and those guys, I can't wait for that one, just to see what Steph might have something cooked up. And while we're going back to some of our predictions or throwing out some attaboys, I did not see it with LaMelo Ball. Now, I didn't really watch him play. Usually I go through and watch some YouTube, and talking about before the draft last year, I was going on, I remember some, they weren't pickup games, like some camps. And it might have been LiAngelo that I was confusing with LaMelo, where he was like shooting from half court, shot like 60 times in a game. And I'm like, this guy's a ball hog. I just didn't see it, didn't like it, even though I loved Lonzo. But man, LaMelo Ball is awesome. And I know you liked him right from the start. Thought he should have been the first overall pick. But man, he is special. He's great. And, he's just fabulous. And even though the Hornets, and you made the bad prediction tonight, sorry. But, there's some excitement in Charlotte, man, getting LaMelo Ball. He's, special.
Yeah, I think just watching the beginning of tonight's game, what you saw was the difference between a team that hasn't been there before and a team that has been there before. And by saying been there before, I don't mean gotten to win an NBA championship, but the Pacers have at least been in the playoffs. They were in the playoffs last year in the bubble when we saw T.J. Warren drilling all those threes, and obviously he's been out for basically the entire year, but they have playoff experience. They've got guys that have all-star experience, like Domantas Sabonis, and Malcolm Brogdon won the Rookie of the Year during that Henry Ellenson draft year when everybody sucked. But he's been good for them. And you look at the Charlotte Hornets, and Miles Bridges is an exciting player, but he's never played in the playoffs. You look at LaMelo Ball. Last year he was playing in Australia. Bismack Biyombo, all these guys, Malik Monk, they've never played at this level before. So I think that experience that the Indiana Pacers have is what's pushing them through. The other reason I took the Hornets tonight is because we found out earlier today that Karis LeVert was not going to play due to COVID-19 health and safety protocols. So despite all these things going against the Pacers, with them playing poorly down the stretch, they look like they're going to move on and play for a chance to get into the playoffs as the 8th seed on Thursday.
Maybe it's a Spartanitis when it comes down to Bridges. Like, he never did anything in the tournament for MSU, so maybe it's just something when it comes down to big games. Maybe he's just a
Shots fired!
All right, let's look at some of the feedback that is coming in, whether it's on YouTube, Twitch. You're out there, you're watching on Facebook right now. I see you out there watching. You can go ahead, put your comment in. Chapman will respond to whatever your opinion is, or if you have a question here. We've got a guaranteed.
Whoa!
From Keith, Golden State will beat LA. Beat LA. Beat LA. He says he's guaranteeing it. Jelinek really wants Russ and the Wizards to beat the Celtics.
I've got the Wizards beating the Celtics as well, and you look at the way they played down the stretch. Like, how in the third to last game of the season, when you're fighting for playoff positioning and you've been struggling, do you lose to the Cavs? Like that's a brutal loss. When you know the Cavs are tanking, I think in that game Darius Garland didn't play. How in the world do you lose to the Cavs? Who cares if you don't have Jaylen Brown? You got Tatum. Whether you had Kemba Walker or not in that game, the Celtics have been one of the most disappointing teams in the league. For year in and year out, they've been a top 4 seed. They had never quite gotten to the NBA Finals, and I don't even think they've gotten to the conference finals. But to this year be in the play-in tournament as a 7 seed, truly a disappointing year for them.
Yeah, they don't want to be there. They're 5-10 in their last 15. The Wizards are 10-5 in their last 15. I like Washington here, and I'm aboard the Russ. And is Beal? Unless Beal's not playing, that would be something.
He's playing, but he said either yesterday or the day before that he will not be 100%. I think that's enough to get the win.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, there we are. We're ready to move on.
All right, let's turn the page now to the 3rd chapter. And that takes us to a team that obviously did not make the playoffs. That is the Detroit Pistons. But they finished the way that we wanted them to finish. They tanked like a no-limit soldier. Play the Master P, play the Mia X, play the True, play the Silk the Shocker, play the Fiend, play all of them. And that's what the Pistons did down the stretch. They tanked by sitting Jeremy Grant, sitting Isaiah Stewart, Mason Plumlee. Dennis Smith Jr. almost forgot that he was on the team. All these guys just sitting game in and game out. The last couple games, they barely had enough players to field the team. Finished at 20-52. We talked about this at length over the last week or two about how it's important not to win any more games, because if they were tied for the 2nd worst record with 2 or 3 other teams, they could be picking 7th or 8th or 9th. But they finished at 20-52 all alone. That means the Rockets have the worst record in the league, Pistons 2nd worst record, Magic 3rd worst record. They all have a 14% chance of getting the number 1 pick, but the Pistons have a 52.1% chance to get a top 4 pick, 80% chance to get a top 5 pick, and a 100% chance to land a top 6 pick. Now, we know the lottery isn't for another 5 weeks until June 22nd. If it goes to chalk, and you got Houston picking number 1 and the Pistons picking number 2, and let's just say the Rockets do what everybody expects, and they take Cade Cunningham, who should the Pistons select with the number 2 pick in the draft?
Well, I'll say it's between the Jalen's, Green and Suggs. I'm leaning Suggs right now, but I got to watch more Green. You know, like I just haven't seen. I actually have a game DVR'd upstairs that I can get from earlier in the year. Both him and what's the other guy's name? Kuminga. I think they played on the same team. I've got that.
Kuminga. Yep.
Yeah, I've got that. I wouldn't mind watching a little bit and see what he looks like. I've seen some highlights. He can really get up, even though he's a shooting guard, man. He's an athletic shooting guard. Like, he can get into the lane. He can throw it down. I've seen that from him. I don't have enough of a feel about him, but I do have a pretty good feel about Jalen Suggs. Gonzaga, watching 5-6 games of his this year, including the tournament. And you know what? He's got it. He looks like a sure thing in the NBA. Reminds me of a former Portland Trailblazer, Brandon Roy. Looks a lot like his game. And if I had to pick today, I would pick Suggs.
Not even considering this guy up here, Evan Mobley.
I'm not completely ruling him out. Like I see it, but I see more in Suggs right now. So if you're taking Mobley, you're taking it more on the promise and the ceiling here. Man, that could work out, but I like what I see in Suggs right now as the better player.
Yeah, before I give you my selection at number 2, I want to go to a poll that I put up on Twitter asking the exact same question. Who should the Pistons pick if they've got the number 2 pick and Cunningham is off the board? It was very close, basically a 3-way race. 2.4% picked Jonathan Kuminga. Coming in 3rd place was Evan Mobley. 29% say they should take the big man from USC. Your man, Jalen Suggs, came in 2nd place with 32.3% of the vote, and just edging him out was the G League Ignite shooting guard Jalen Green with 36.3%. So very close. I'm sure if we put out some more of these polls in the weeks to come before the draft, that this could change even more. But Dennis, I am with the people in the poll right there, I would go with Jalen Green. I remember reading a lot about him. A lot of folks saying that he reminds them of Kobe Bryant. I believe I read an article where he played with Paul George last summer in like some pickup league, and Paul George is really impressed. But what really got me from thinking, hey, this guy fits a need, and there's a lot of buzz about him, to thinking this is the guy the Pistons should pick at number 2, was I watched a video clip from YouTube, 13 minutes of basically all of his G League highlights, because they only played 15 games, and I was sold. And not only is he an alpha scorer at a position of need at shooting guard, because the Pistons need a shooting guard, and not only do the measurables fit, not only were the numbers nice, because he averaged almost 18 a game, 46% from the field, 83% from the free throw line, and you like a guy that's a shooting guard that can shoot from downtown, 36.5%, not from a college three-point line, but from an NBA three-point line. I like that. I was impressed with his ability to score at all 3 levels. I saw him make a bunch of threes in that highlight video. His jumper looks kind of weird, but it goes in. He can hit the mid-range jumper, but when he drives, it's lethal. I mean, I was obviously looking at highlights, but when he slashes, his ability to hang in midair with a whole bunch of trees in the midst and find a way to get that ball up on the rim or off the backboard and in, time and time again, he was hitting contested shots in the lane. And I think if you watch any amount of Jalen Green highlights, you'll have to come away impressed with his ability to hit contested shots in the lane. And I think that's where the comparisons to Kobe Bryant come from, because Kobe could get in the lane, could get in the lane starting from the three-point arc, drive, have the pocket collapse on him, and still put up a shot and have it go in, get to the free throw line. I like Suggs. I like Mobley. And if the Pistons are picking number 5, Kuminga might be a nice option. But Jalen Green, from what I've seen, the hype is real about him possibly being the best scorer, and the Pistons need a scorer who can create his own at all 3 levels.
Well, when you start comparing a player to Kobe, that's going to get your attention. And, if you're comparing a player to Kobe, what you're really comparing him to is Michael Jordan, because nobody played more like Michael Jordan than Kobe Bryant. So what you're saying here is, you might be sitting there with the chance to draft Michael Jordan. So that has my attention. Let me see if this gets your attention.
He's got some elements of those guys in him.
Yeah, well, that's nice. I did see the one highlight where he was throwing it down, and that got my attention for sure. Mm-hmm. I saw the last, and this is just as a guide, but it's also something just to keep in mind. We don't even know where the Pistons are going to pick. But for the last 10 years, here are the number 2 picks. You ready?
Yes.
Marvin Bagley, Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, D'Angelo Russell, Jabari Parker, Victor Oladipo, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Derek Williams, Evan Turner, Hasheem Thabeet, and Michael Beasley.
The first few names were better than the last few names, because you don't want a Hasheem Thabeet. No. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, is he still in the league? If he is, he's a bench player.
Right.
But you like Lonzo Ball. You like some of the guys you mentioned first in that group. That's for certain.
Yeah, maybe the jury's still out on Bagley. You're right about Lonzo. Brandon Ingram looks like he's pretty good.
He's an all-star.
You go through some of that, and you're like, ooh. But, that doesn't mean you'd rather have the 2 than the 3. Like, Jordan was picked 3rd, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, I think that with all the experts saying that this is going to be looking like a 5-player draft and there being a drop-off after 5, that's why it was so key for the Pistons to finish with the number 2 pick, so they have an 80% chance to get there. But unlike you, I actually have Evan Mobley above Jalen Suggs, and I think that it's close to a toss-up between those two, and I think that if the Pistons take Suggs, he can obviously play either guard, and I think it would come down to really the development of Killian Hayes and Hamidou Diallo, because Hayes, he shot better at the end of the year, but I wonder if some of that was because nobody had any respect for his jumper, so they just said, hey, just let him stay out there. It's like having Andre Drummond shooting the 3, and he made a couple of them. But if he can start to hit some threes, then obviously it'd be easy to put him at the 2 guard. But if Hamidou Diallo, who was a nice pickup by Troy Weaver during the middle of the season and averaged 18 a game in his last 6, if he steps up, then Hayes, if he's not playing all that well, he can ride the bench with Suggs starting. And then when you look at Evan Mobley, I think that if they draft him at number 2 or number 3, that instantly puts the futures of Jeremy Grant and Sekou Doumbouya in question, because Sekou is 20. He's a 20-year-old who stunk. I know you say give him another year, but on the second worst team in the league, Hayes, Bey, and Stewart were playing big minutes in their rookie years, and he was not playing more than 15 minutes a game until after Grant started missing games in April. And when he was playing, he wasn't scaring folks. And if the Pistons draft Mobley, well, then guess what? He's instantly going to be in that top 4 of big men with Plumlee, Grant, and Stewart. So what's Sekou going to do? He's probably going to get traded away. And then you got to wonder, is Grant, with a year and a half or 2 years left on his deal, that's the best time to trade him if you really feel comfortable with a future front court of the 2 guys you just drafted in Mobley and Stewart.
Yeah, you make some good points. Like the thing on Sekou, I would like to see, even though he's only 19, I would like to have seen a little bit more from him. So I'm with you on that. Let's get to some of these the feedback that is coming in here. Keith says he still can't believe the Suns are the 2 seed. Goes to show the difference of a great veteran point guard like Chris Paul and what he can make even at 36. Mm-hmm. Hope they make it to the finals. Keith saying that I look tired, dude. Get some sleep tonight. The one thing, I get really good sleep. So it's got to be something else. And probably, the weight I'm gaining makes me look a little puffed up, maybe and tired.
Well, what's the update on the 50 and 50?
Yeah, well, it's going the other way. I've almost got it. I've almost made it. I was trying to lose 50, not gain 50.
Wow.
No, there's the little thing there.
Uh-oh.
But I've almost made it, 50 and 50. So it might end up being the 50 and 100. How about that?
Wow.
BP, hope you're right on LA being out of the playoffs. Keith, haha. Mary Ann Fithian saying the Pistons should take Wagner at number 2.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that she would say take the home. Would Troy Weaver want to trade down to select Mo Wagner at 9? Or maybe if the Pistons get unlucky and they get that 6th pick, would they stand pat and take Mo Wagner?
Jelinek taking it. Not a surprise, Spartan Jelinek. He probably didn't like that Miles Bridges shot, so he comes in and says Wagner will do the same thing his brother did in the NBA. He won't be good. Keith says flip a 3-headed coin between the Jalen's and Mobley. I'm happy with any of them, but when in doubt, I still take the big man with skills over the smaller, unless they are supremely elite.
Watch some highlights of Jalen Green and watch his creativity when he gets in the lane, when he gets in the air to still hit those shots, and you might come away more impressed than you would think about Green. And here's the other thing about him. He played this year against former NBA players, and he played for an NBA coach in Brian Shaw. So they're coaching NBA concepts as opposed to what they're doing in college. They're just looking at how can we win this game with college concepts. That's important, I think.
Yep. Some more Michigan State stuff from Jelinek. And Keith says, here, same here, man. I'm fat right now, too. Hey, you know what? It's always something to work at. Keith, come on. You and me together. Let's do it. All right.
You ready to turn the page to the 3rd chapter? We're already in the 3rd chapter, aren't we? Yeah, turn the page to the 4th chapter. And, of course, for the 4th chapter, we have a very special guest. And with that, we turn to the 4th chapter where we have a special guest. He is the founder of the Players Edge Baseball Training Center, where he was the personal hitting coach for a National League and American League batting champion DJ LeMahieu of the New York Yankees, and the 2020 NL Rookie of the Year runner-up Jake Cronenworth. He is the former manager of the 2-time USPBL champion Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers. He is a former scout of the New York Yankees, and he is currently a coach in the New York Mets farm system. Dennis and I are proud to welcome Chris Newell to the 5th chapter. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey, so now that you have been moved up from the USPBL to affiliated baseball, tell everybody out there who may have been a fan of your team in the USPBL what it's like for not a player but a manager to get that call up to affiliated baseball.
Well, it was special. I think it's a dream that everybody has, is try to get, keep the uniform and get to on as long as you can and get to that highest level that you possibly can. And the USPBL was a great stepping stone. I had obviously a great mentor beforehand in my parents, but also Dave Bergman, the late great Tiger hero Dave Bergman. And then I was fortunate enough to meet Rich Donnelly. And Rich Donnelly is kind of another father figure to me, a godsend, if you will, and a big part of why I'm where I'm at. So, I'd like to give him a shout out as well. But it's great just to keep the uniform on and climb the ladder and just essentially deal with a different group of kids, young kids, with the same dreams and aspirations. But it's great. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, Chris, tell me along the journey there, whether it's, managing, you talked, look, you were a scout. People understand what, being a manager is, and a little bit about a scout, but like when you hear about, hey, what's a scout do and traveling around, tell us a little bit about that and your experience as being a scout.
Yeah, so it was a great getting my foot in the door. And back in 1999, my career ended as a player after 2 years in the minor leagues in 1998. And, baseball is all I ever wanted to do. And there's so many more avenues to get involved in the game, as you guys know, outside of a player. And I always took a lot of pride in, being able to evaluate talent. And Ricky Bennett, who was with the Tigers at the time, told me that he didn't have that they didn't have any openings, but he says, "Hey, call Matt Kinzer with Tampa Bay. I think they're looking for somebody in this area." And he gave me Matt's number, and Matt and I hooked up, and kind of the rest is history. But it was great because it gets you from a different perspective, of the game, and scouting and player development are always the backbone of championship teams, and to be honest with you, there's some rift between scouting and player development, because if the scout drafts a kid, and oftentimes the PD guys, player development guys, are like, I can't believe we drafted this kid. This kid's not even close, and then when the kid doesn't get better, it's the player development guys are, hey, what the heck, you guys gave me somebody who wasn't good enough, or you didn't get our player better. But it's everybody's pulling in the right direction, and when everybody's on the same page, as you guys know, that's when success is going to happen. And sounds like we got a great scouting group here and great player development group, and bottom line is, let's win a championship at the major league level, and oftentimes it starts down here in the low levels.
Have you noticed any sort of rift between scouting and analytics now that you've made it to the minor league level? I'm not sure how much you had to pay attention to analytics and how much there was in the USPBL, but certainly that's something that's taken over the game in the way it's played, and certainly in the way that it's viewed aesthetically for the viewers.
Sure, and it's a great thing for the viewers, and without the viewers and without the fans, we don't have the game that we have. I think the analytics brings a great important piece to player development, especially if you get the guys or the players who are really on board with. But then you got some players who don't want to see it, and that's fine. And I think our job is to find the guys. First off, let them know that we have the information available to you if you want it. But at the same time, there's that personal feel and developing those relationships and that trust between the coach and the player that, in my opinion, is never going to go away. And if it does go away, I think we're in for a big problem, because it's those relationships that build trust, which eventually build championships. But it's very important. The analytics side is great. Our analytics department does a great job. And like anything else, they're still working through some kinks and, trying to, we're as long as we're all on board for the right reasons, which we are, we'll find that happy medium. It might happen tomorrow, might happen next week, it might happen in 2 years. But the goal is the same, and that's to get the players better. And whatever the heck we got to do that, we're all on board.
Is it an organizational approach when you talk? Like, I just think about hitting. when you're bringing guys in, and is the approach the same? You're still trying to get them to square up the ball and drive the ball, or are some guys coming in saying, hey, I want to hit the lower half of the ball to elevate it so I get more home runs? I mean, is that different over the last few years? Have you seen that?
To be honest with you, Dennis, we've had two different hitting coordinators in the 2 years that I've been here, and two different farm directors. The bottom line is what the philosophy is put yourself in good hitters counts and hit the ball hard. And that's always the objective. Hit the ball hard. And it's hard enough to do it. I mean, you're talking about trying to hit a round object with a round object square. You guys got about that much area to do it. So it's certainly hard, but studies show if you put yourself in good hitters counts, you got a better chance at driving the ball, and the more balls you hit hard, the better chance you have at hitting the ball out of the ballpark or hitting for an average. But bottom line is you got to get on base. And, if you're not getting guys on base, but they're hitting the ball hard, I get it. It's tough luck. But at the end of the day, and especially as we climb in this organization, we ultimately get to New York, it's whether you either get a W or an L after every ball game, and you can't get W's unless you score runs and get guys on base.
Now, one of the big changes in baseball this year have been what I like to refer to as the Manfred ball rules. We've seen them beginning last year with sticking the extra man on second base to start extra innings and going to 7-inning games. But now in the minor leagues, I mean, they're going with some really extreme changes like gigantic bases at AAA, 15-second pitch clocks, robot umpires, limits on the number of pickoff attempts. I'm wondering what you think about these changes and some of the conversations you've had with others throughout the organization and throughout minor league baseball about these Manfred ball changes.
Boy, you know how to put me on the spot, B. Something you've always done great at, man. Golly. Listen, I'm all for trying to get the game better, but at the same time, the one thing about baseball is it's traditional and it's old school, and the game has been played a certain way, and I get it. Things will change, but the unique thing about baseball is, you got the 90 feet bases, you got feet 6 inches, but you got some ballparks that are 340 down the line and others are 310. And if you're going to make in my opinion, if you're going to make the drastic changes that you're making to preserve the game, if you will, and by the way, it doesn't need to be preserved. It's going strong in my mind, but then just have cookie cutter stadiums as far as, distance from home plate to the left field line, to the right field line, to the gaps, to center field. Keep everything simple. As we know, there's guys that play in Yankee Stadium and hit more home runs. You put them in Comerica Park and they hit a lot less home runs, and but they hit the ball the same distance. So if we're going to start getting technical, then I think you start at the size of the ballparks and make them all equal.
Chris Newell with us, and Chris, Chapman mentioned a couple of the big time names there, like DJ LeMahieu and Jake Cronenworth, and I'm looking for one of your favorite stories. I know last year the Twins pitcher, he went from driving Uber to pitching for the Twins and pitching in the playoffs, and that was Radney Dobnik. You got a favorite story from any of the guys? You've been around long enough. You're going to have some of the guys that end up making the show and making a name for themselves.
Yeah, case in point. I mean, I'll start with DJ. DJ, I met DJ when he was a young, wiry 8th grader going into 9th grade. And, he obviously, great skill set back then. But, one of my first stories that I love telling about DJ is I remember DJ telling me one time, he says, Chris, baseball better work out because I am not a guy that is going to be able to wear a suit and go 9 to 5. And, and I thought that, he was a young minor leaguer at the time. And then the other story I like about DJ, and I'll never forget, I was actually watching, I was scouting for the Yankees at Central Michigan when they played Western. And I had to fill out a report on one of my students, Andrew Sohn, who ended up going in the 7th round to the Cardinals that year. And anyway, DJ was in a slump. His dad called me and said, "Hey, would you mind giving DJ a call?" So I said, "Yeah, I'll call him on my way home." So I called DJ. He picks up the phone and and I said, "Hey, man, how you doing?" And he goes, "Man, I seriously don't think I'm ever going to get another hit." Couple profanities laced in there, but and I remember laughing, and he's like, "Well, I'm glad one of us think it's funny." And I said, "I just think it's hilarious that for the, you're struggling and dealing with failure for the first time in your life, in your career, and you're in the major leagues, struggling. Most of us struggle in t-ball and little league, for crying out loud." That's always a great story that I share with these young players that I'm dealing with now. And then Cronenworth, man, first time, watching him swing, I asked him what his plans were. Again, he was a young 8th or 9th grader, and he's a quiet kid like DJ, and he's like, "I'm probably gonna play hockey. I think hockey's my best sport." And I said, "Well, one of my dear friends is the assistant GM. Well, at the time he was a scout for the Red Wings." And I said, "One of my dear friends is a scout for the Red Wings. That's the only thing I really know about hockey." I said, "But one thing I do know, you're going to play Division I baseball, and I think you're going to end up playing professional baseball." And the kid looked at me like I was on drugs. I told his dad the same thing. His dad thought I was on drugs, and here we go. All these years later, those two guys are making a great name for themselves, and it's a testament to the quality of players we have up here in Michigan.
Yeah, and you also got an opportunity to coach one of the people on the Fifth Chapter, me. What was it like coaching me? Because not everybody has the same level of success as DJ and Jake, but what kind of memories do you have of coaching me?
Well, great memories. In fact, Brian, you, as you well know, you're in my Hall of Fame at my facility.
That's right. I'm a Hall of Famer.
You are. You're a Hall of Famer, and one of the first guys that I ever started working with. And I think you were a young 6th grader, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that, yeah.
I remember there was like a little camp that we were putting together, and I've told you this before, but you reminded me of Urkel coming in with these little glasses and goggles, and you come in and that the energy was there, the passion was there. We were just a little light on the consistency of the mechanics and
All right, so that was Chris Newell, and if you want to donate to his charity, we have the opportunity for you to do so. We can put Homers for Help up on the screen so you guys can take a look at it. Here's his website. It gives you an opportunity to donate, to contact him, to follow him, and you can see that the mission is to raise awareness for suicide and depression. And then down at the bottom, obviously, you see Chris Newell, the president of Homers for Help and the New York Mets minor league baseball manager. So definitely, actually, it would be nice if I put that on the screen so everybody can see it. There you go. But yeah, here's the website. Nobody can see that, Dennis. Homers for Help, the mission to raise awareness for suicide and depression. You can get involved, donate, contact, follow. As you can see on the side, Chris is pledging to donate $100 for every grand slam, $50 for every 3-run homer, $24 for every 2-run homer, $20 for every solo homer. If somebody hits an inside the park homer, $200 is what he's going to donate because he feels so strongly about helping out those that are dealing with mental health issues and preventing suicide. So definitely want to thank Chris for coming on to the Fifth Chapter with us. And if you feel so inclined, please visit homersforhelp.org. That's homers, the number 4, help.org, and make a contribution. I don't think your mic is on, Dennis.
Great cause. Thanks for Chris for coming on.
Yep, definitely appreciate that. All right, that gives us now the opportunity to turn the page to the Fifth Chapter. Oh gosh, nobody needs to see that. I don't look like Urkel now. No glasses, no hair, and I've never worn suspenders.
Back in the day, though, was that a common nickname for you?
No. That very rarely would I get that. Very rarely.
Did you see where he was coming from? Did you wear glasses back in the day?
Yeah, I wore glasses. I think by the time I met him, I was mostly wearing contacts, but and that's what I wear right now because I hate wearing glasses. But I was definitely skinny back then. When I was in 8th grade, I weighed 98 pounds. So
and you had glasses and you had hair, probably a little bit of hair.
Yeah. My mom wouldn't let me shave my head. I wanted to be bald since I was in probably elementary school, certainly by middle school. And I told her that when I go to college, I'm going to shave my head and there's nothing you can do about it. She said, oh, yeah, that's probably true. There's nothing I can do about it. She thought I would forget about it or it was going to be a phase. It's a phase that's been going on for over 18 years.
Well, that's funny because everybody was telling me I was going to be bald. And I was saying, man, I don't want to be bald. By the time I was 30, it happened. So there it is. Funny how life works.
All right, Dennis, let's turn the page now to the 5th chapter. And this is where we give you some bets that you can make out there for the major wager. Try to help you guys win some money with the NBA play-in tournament going on right now, the NHL playoffs, and, of course, regular season baseball. Dennis, remind us what you bet on Thursday and what you're thinking about for tonight or the next couple of days.
What did I bet on Thursday? I'll have to go back and think of that. I think I had some good bets, though. So I'll think that over. I had the Preakness.
Oh, yeah, some farm animals.
Yeah, I didn't have the winner, but I did, I picked I boxed the 3 horses, and I got 2 of them to place and show. So I got a return on my investment, so it wasn't all that bad. I am looking to tomorrow night's play-in game with the Lakers and the Warriors, and I was going to pick, L.A. because that's who I think is going to win. But you know what? Keith has just got me on the beat L.A. bandwagon. And you know what? Do I want to root for L.A.? No, I don't. I want to root for Golden State. So what's better than put a little money down on the Warriors? And Keith feels like they're going to beat him. He's guaranteeing it. I'm jumping on the guaranteed. I'm flipping. I'm taking the Warriors +5.
Okay. I saw it at +4.5, but if it's at +5, even better. On Thursday, I used my baseball strikeout projection model to pick the under on 5.5 strikeouts for Rich Hill, and he had 9. So that just came out of nowhere. My model predicted 3.79. He had 9. Tonight, I'm going to go to the NBA play-in tournament. I'm going to go to the second game tonight, Wizards against the Celtics. The Wizards, I believe, are a 1.5-point underdog. Forget the point spread. Just take the money line. I think it's about +110. Celtics have been awful. They can't even beat the Cavs. 6 days ago, they lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They also recently lost to the Chicago Bulls. In their last 7 games, their only wins came against the tanking Orlando Magic and the tanking Minnesota Timberwolves. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, the Wizards have been one of the hottest teams in the league. Whatever they can get from Beal will be enough. I wouldn't be surprised if Russell Westbrook has a triple-double. The Celtics, I mean, without Jaylen Brown, there's just no reason to get behind them. I think that the Celtics have a shot on Thursday to beat the Indiana Pacers, but not if the Pacers are playing like this. But tonight, Wizards money line, take it.
All right, we'll put it in the bank. Coming up on Thursday's 5th chapter, what is, if everything goes right, the ceiling for your Detroit Lions? We'll discuss that and a bunch of other things coming up on Thursday's show. Thanks to Brian Jelinek. We will see him.
And Chris Newell. Good point there. Thanks
to both guys for helping us out here today. We'll see Jelinek coming up on Thursday. And for Brian Chapman, I'm Dennis Fithian. Thanks for watching the 5th chapter. Good night.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the 5th chapter. Huh. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the fifth chapter. Huh.